track. Welcome to Marmar's Hello There podcast, episode number 1. Today's guest is my best fucking friend, David Carmona. We're going to talk about some shit that I find interesting that he does, and probably bullshit and make fun of each other. Anyhow, let's get the episode started. Hey, Dave.
Hey. Well, that was different.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it was like kind of real.
I know, I wrote that myself.
They came together.
So, anyhow,
What's up?
I'm going for it. This is episode 1. Fuck it. We'll record it.
Fuck it. That's the episode.
Anyhow, like I said, this is my first guest on the Marmar's Hello There podcast. Hopefully that's the name that sticks. We'll find out. Anyhow,
Depends if there's a domain
we'll see.
or
We're just
legal.
going for who fucking cares. Anyhow, so, yeah, man. Welcome to the fucking studio.
Thanks, man. It's great. It's a great studio. I know the audience can't really see it, but
You're missing out.
It's littered with treasures from the early 90s,
Tchotchkes.
80s, and just kind of leftover riffraff.
Tchotchkes.
Yep.
Anyhow, so we're here to talk about some stuff that I find interesting that David does. The beginning points of where it all started off and where he's at today, and some other shit. And we'll see what fucking happens, Dave.
Cool. I'm
So
down.
anyhow, what is it that you do right now? Like, what's your job? That's the part that I find interesting.
So the easiest way, at least I tell my mom, is I'm a designer, and then I kind of work back from there. My actual title is a staff user experience designer, and I work for LinkedIn, which is a tech company in the Silicon Valley. But it's essentially made up of designing actual pixels on a computer and working with engineers to actually get that work done, like mobile platforms and shit like that.
Can you tell us what you make an hour?
Yeah.
Don't do it. I know it's a lot. So it's pretty cool. And especially because we're best friends. We pretty much grew up, started knowing each other since, middle school, really?
Yeah, I would say so.
So knowing, like, where...
Clearly, you wanted to be my friend
Clearly.
from an early stage on.
But knowing where we started as friends and kind of where, like, the things that we got into as, like, within our friendship to where they're at now is cool. And so...
Sorry. Yeah, I got a little nervous there and I hit the mic. Sorry.
Yeah. Way to be a professional. Anyhow, so to where you got is to me, it's pretty cool because everything started off as we were doing the band thing, right? At least to me, is we had the band, many of them, different variations with different people passing through. Not always a musician. We just needed to say we had a band.
Right.
But as the further along we got, the more we realized we needed things like a website, the MySpace thing, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. It was actually in the earlier days of like trying to figure out how to actually get your brand per se of being a band out there to your hundreds of thousands of adoring fans that, flock you at different concerts that you happen to put on at like different town hall centers and little skate parks or whatever you can happen to manage, house parties and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
with that, so you were always the guy who did like the design shit, banners, like the MySpace banner shit, or even making like the websites and figuring all that shit out. You were the one to kind of do that. You did the graphic design stuff for us too, or at least you would get in contact with people to design the things. You were, and then it just seemed like you're like, why am I paying someone else to do it when I'll just do it myself?
Yeah, exactly. I think it just kind of came down to practicality in a lot of ways.
Right.
Like, kind of mentioned a story yesterday. We were drinking and, happening to figure out ways to get your band actually together in the first place is actually a challenge. Being a musician of one is, pretty straightforward. You're just kind of riffing and jamming by yourself in the room. And whether you want other people to hear that is kind of a big question mark. And it's odd that kind of comes back and relates to design in a lot of ways as well. You can easily design for yourself or for many, and it's just kind of a choice. But with music in mind, like having more people and especially bandmates coming together and creating like this unified artwork or, design perspective is really cool. And it's a really empowering thing to see kind of the creation, especially when it's kind of taken for granted these days more and more. And people that still kind of hone that craft and that foundational graphic arts is something that I admire from day to day. There's a documentary called Abstract on Netflix, and it goes into the different kind of like personalities of skilled trades in the design world, to say the least. And it spans in so many different ways. And I think people that kind of limit themselves into one particular vertical have a narrow kind of mindset of, what the realities on that subject could be and how you could really influence it in different ways. Like take this podcast, for example, right? Like
you mean the Marmar's Hello There podcast with me, your host, Martin.
Perfect timing.
Like that?
Yep, that, exactly. It's a cool blend between creating music and then creating more of a foundational communication between people, but, obviously including your art into it. I could say the same for the work that I do today. It might be based on, certain business or certain just design related things, but ultimately I get to embed my personality into those decisions, and that actually affects millions of people.
Right. That's kind of crazy too. It's like, oh, you're creating something for a lot of fucking people to see.
Yeah. Right now, at least LinkedIn has 700 million active members on our.
That's it.
I mean, in comparison to like Google and Facebook, it's like pennies, right?
Not to me.
Yeah, right. But they're kind of in the multi-billion span, which is obviously a lot to handle.
Right.
For our company right now, I'm having to deal with a lot of like accessibility challenges, like understanding people that might not all be on the same planes. That goes from like broadband internet, like understanding that we might not all have the same internet connection. How do you suit that need?
Yeah, there's a lot of like weird variables in that kind of shit, which I have no idea about. But it's funny because, so like I'll think of something to do, and I'm like, hey, I have this fucking idea, and then you're like, yeah, okay, but, and then you just list off all this shit. And I'm like, I just want to be simple.
Yeah, and I think that's actually the funnest part, actually, and that's the root to any real creativity, and you can't lose that too. Like you have to be
There's a balance.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and that balance is, how experimental do you want to go? I guess I kind of learned that in an early stage with my sister. She was like embedded in the fashion design world. And a lot of my quote unquote influence had kind of been rubbed off from her.
Right. Well, I mean, because there's always been something like the creative thing. It seems like you've always kind of had around you, and so it just seems not like, okay, yeah, he's in he has a career that's deals with having to be creative and create things and design things, and so that seems like your sister, because she was into a lot of that stuff of creating things and designing things, that it's like that kind of rubbed off on you.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely she had a huge influence. And it's odd that the timing of this is post.
My dog's in here with a Chewy toy.
Artie.
He's in the studio where we're doing the Marmar's Hello There podcast with me, your host, Martin.
Sure, you roll the intro music again. I don't know.
I'll go back a little
All
bit.
right, let's start this shit over.
But yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's kind of odd timing that recently my dad passed away, and I actually got to see a lot of the archives of his history and his family and whatnot, and it's actually entrenched in our or at least my father's kind of historical just personality of whom you were to be created by. Like stupid examples where like doodlings of NASCAR inspiration. He was really into driving and that sort of thing.
Right.
He had all kinds of concepts about businesses and taking these poker cards and creating custom designs on them, or like horseshoes, just things that are just like maybe more old-fashioned-y kind of sport.
Little hobby things.
Yeah, like darts, like traditional darts, and then like customizing it with different like floral designs or whatever. It's just like his spin on it, and he was passionate about that. And in particular, he had done some racing for probably 5 years or so. And he would actually let me kind of chip into designing the car with him.
Right.
Naive things about how to do flames. You really don't understand the complexity of a simple illustration until you're actually met with the task of doing it yourself.
Right. I had a wallet that had flames on it.
It's sick, right? From Hot Topic. But yeah, he taught me what ghost flames were. Like that's something that I learned at such a foundational time that if I asked some common designers today, they probably glance over and not really understand. And maybe it's not important either, but it's all those experiences kind of build who you are today.
Yeah, it's true. And that's what's cool. And God damn it, doggy. So
that's why they have studios dedicated to like recording.
Artie, what do you have to say about everything? Woo! Oh, that's fucking cool. So let's talk about how like the computer part of everything got involved, because like hand drawing and creating things or painting or stuff, that's part of it. But definitely the computer thing is where everything kind of like was moving towards, and designing on the computer, and like Photoshop and whatever else there is. And so when I don't know, what was it? It was like just like banners and shit. And what made you move? Like what got you going in that direction to actually like do the computer part of things?
I mean, it's kind of a means to an end is the simple way to boil it down, obviously, having a computer in the first place. But my stepfather, Jeff, actually had a computer when I was really young, maybe 5, 6. So, very early Windows. I would probably misdate it, but 93 or whatever, this kind of that particular era when you were still like using AOL disk and just like goofing off on
I still have a Hotmail.
Well,
and you always like,
we
like,
need to talk about that off the record. But yeah, so it was just kind of cool, more or less, the tech side of it. And I think art in terms of music and seeing outside influences like yourself and all the stuff that you create and my sister creates, and like the exposure I had at an early level to the idea of what creation could be and how you shouldn't limit yourself by that. Again, my sister really influencing those limitations of what is like rightful design or experimental, and how that like really is perceived on you as a person. Mm-hmm. So again, means to an end. The MySpace era of getting a CSS, HTML site was just literally like, I want my shit look tight.
Huh?
Right?
And that's the thing. Like you were the one to always like find out what all that shit was. I had no fucking clue. I remember asking questions like, "Hey Dave, does this need like HTML dot?" And you're like, "That means nothing. You don't even need to do this." I'm the worst at that shit. And but you always knew like the technical part of things and all these little like detail-y shit. I'm like, I don't fucking know. I'm gonna let you do it. And so but luckily for you, So I just had to hit the old pause button because my fucking dog.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
I feel like every single first episode podcast I listen to literally has all of these fucking trademark terrible situations.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is
So
happening.
If this actually goes out in full reveal,
it'll be sick as fuck.
This is actually episode 2, and there's technically a 0. It doesn't make any sense. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So
back onto our original topic.
Yeah, so it was just kind of cool to see. Like, it was always like comforting. Like, oh, thank God, David does this shit. Okay, cool. Like, I don't have to worry about it. Because for whatever reason, Dave's going to do it.
Do you remember actually contracting that one guy? I forget how far we had to drive off. I think it was in Elk Grove or somewhere near there. And he was building a Flash website. I think it was with Left Apart.
Yeah, and it had like the lights that would like fade and shit like that.
That shit was, dude, for at its time, that really had a big like boom in my life.
It looked fucking sick. I was like, oh my God, we're a real band.
Yeah, it was tight. And my sister did the photo shoot with us in downtown.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Under the light.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That was actually, it was a learning experience, right? You can take the sentiment of that idea of needing like mockerish, anyways, photos of like mockerish, like, you know,
right.
And needing that like profile shot and some kind of way that the people listening to your music could actually relate to who the fuck was playing this. And
right.
It's funny that today sometimes I'll pick up like a local newspaper or whatever, the bulletin, and look at the bands. I'm like, oh, like, you know, Until the Arm Breaks, or these weird like band names. And I asked myself, I'm like, oh fuck, well, like, was I falling into that particular trap? And like, is that shit still work these days? Or like
what though? What are you talking about?
Like, just like when they're like, hey, come to our show, like it's at 7 p.m. and you know it's with Lost Little Star and no one knows. And I'm like, oh, is that actually the band name? Like, yeah, like it's
so sick. I just thought it was fucking tight. I was like, oh shit, we're like a real band. We have a fucking website. And then like, oh, you do? I'm like, yeah, it's a Flash website. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, what's Flash? Oh, like things move.
Yeah.
Or you can zoom in.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, it was the naive stages of
I didn't know shit.
Building websites.
I still don't know shit.
Yeah. So for what it's worth, like taking history and really summing it up in a nutshell, like everything was about function before. Like, let me just get information right. Think about the Wikipedia of back in the day.
Well, it was all just like, I don't know.
So
it seemed just like we needed. There was a need, and then like, well, how do we figure this out? And then you would kind of figure it out, or you would like find someone like the guy who made the website. Like, I don't even know how you found him, but it was all these needs, and somehow, like needs on not like the musical end, but like the promotion kind of stuff and getting the name out there. And you were always able to like find out things to do it, like whether it was creating the logos or whatever it was, or finding someone to do the work that we needed. Like, you always did that shit.
Yeah. I don't know why exactly, but it's either filling the role feels satisfying, or, you know, the problem solving of understanding something complex and boiling it down to more simplistic attributes. And I'm not saying I'm a fucking genius by any stance.
You're a crazy genius.
I'm sure I could take an English 101 class again.
No, you don't.
No,
waste
not
of
at all.
time.
But yeah, so I think websites were all about just functional, you know, just making sure that you had a lot of data. And then at our particular phase of creating, you know, immersive sites, and that, like, to say the least, that was not immersive, but like having content where you can, like, you know, see a picture and read something about an artist and watch a video if you're really fucking cutting edge, or, you know, see something anime. All of those things were, you know, actually more levels of complexity, and supposedly,
right,
you know, people liked that, or at least I liked it, and other people that looked at websites enjoyed those things. So I think ultimately people should cater to their end user if that's really what they're driven by.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's an audience, and you need to be somewhat appealing, I guess.
Right, like so
me, I'm crazy appealing.
You're so appealing.
No, appealing I am, David.
I'm drawn on by your eyes.
Fucking crazy.
So our buddy Will Swan, whom we have,
name drop.
whoop. He actually taught me a lot too, oddly, and we were kind of friends at a similar track of our life, oddly enough. And I think that's the one thing that me and him have always shared together, which is that like that business mindset to, any kind of thing that you love. And for his manner, it's obviously music. He's like gone heads over heels for like
He's
that.
had a little success.
Just a wee. I mean, with Dance Gavin Dance and Blues.
Who?
I don't know.
Blue Swan.
It's not like they're big either, but to a moderate sized portion of the world, they're notable. And I think Will could respect understanding that they could probably grab more people. Like that's the weird side of that brain. It's just like always pursuing new avenues. And like for him, I'm so beyond proud and like stoked, and hopefully you'll get to chat with him at some point. But
well, I mean, if it wasn't for you and I, he'd be nothing. Is that fair to say?
No, I'm not sure about that, but he definitely wouldn't be known as the Jacket or those sorts of things. That was
So all right, so talking about kind of the seeds of everything, of kind of having these needs and needing to figure something out. And can you see the bulge of my weenie or something?
Yeah.
So, and kind of, your sister being such an artistic and creative person and making you do like runway walks dressed as some sort of strange glittery faced thing.
Save it for the podcast.
And, just being involved and surrounded by this kind of world of creativity and art and all that stuff. And then moving into music, and music, just same thing. You're creating stuff, you're creating music. And then from that, creating websites and logos and designing banners and MySpace and blah, blah, blah.
You remember the fucking banners we hung up for Here's Lies Inc.?
Yeah.
Think about that. Today, like, stage performers have
we
a backdrop.
had scrims before scrims were scrimming.
Let's not go that far.
You take a bed sheet.
Yeah.
Hold
lay
on.
it down.
We're taking a break, and I'm going to teach you people something. You take
It's
a
valuable
bed sheet,
marketing lesson.
and you have your logo design or whatever, and then you take the sheet, you cut it in half, so you have two, because you got to have one.
We
on
didn't
each
have
side.
a design. We literally
I made the design.
this
I made
shit.
the goddamn design. You cut it out of some cardboard. You get some white house paint, and you get to painting, and boom, you have a janky looking banner. But like all of that stuff though kind of was building up to what you and I do nowadays. When we create, we like just do it. Oh, we need something, you just do it. And there's ways to do things. And so anyways, with all of that stuff, you ended up going to school, like graphic arts and all that kind of shit. And so what made you want to go to school? Because I know at some point you thought you wanted to be like Mr. Firefighter.
Right. So let's step back a little bit and realize we live in Sacramento, and in particular West Sacramento.
What's up?
Woo! And the narrow-mindedness, to say the least, of
Watch your step.
our
Watch your step.
potential could be had always kind of bugged me, at the same time conflicted with me at the same point too. I mean, in what is this? When did we graduate? 2000? Yeah,
2004.
Oh fuck.
Jesus.
So, but I mean, 2000. I have a weird timestamp on that because it's the 2000s. And also, I think it was a lot of just thinking, "What the fuck am I doing?" kind of thing. It's like, yeah, I'm in high school. I get that, but like, I hate math. I like science.
Yep.
History's interesting. Everything else, it's just in between, and I don't give a fuck about. Right. And obviously, you build a cereal hat and
we've been creating shit for fucking years, man.
Yeah, if there was a way to send visuals of that particular...
I wish there was. Dude.
Yeah.
I made some me, but...
Yeah, I mean, you just take all my shit, and then all of a sudden it's yours. I get it. This is how history has gone, motherfucker. Somehow it's yours. Remember when we put rubber bands in our hair?
Bullshit.
When
Bullshit.
I put rubber bands in my hair.
I was doing it. Then you were going to do it, and you're like, hey, should I do it? I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And you're like, okay. I had already been doing it. And then you show up at school.
It was still the day of.
I'm talking. And then we show up at school, and then everyone sees your hair, and they're like, hey. And then I have people coming up and being like, hey, dude, some guy's like copping your hair. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, he's got like rubber bands. I'm like, oh, Dave? Yeah, I know. I told him like, oh, yeah, you should do it. I was there for you. I backed you, dude.
You didn't back me when it mattered. When the time of
Does it really matter when it mattered?
I still hold that moment till this day
and rightfully so.
And not being a true friend. That's basically what it boils down to.
Like that. You should remember, like, oh, that's right. I'm always gonna be second best.
You're a terrible person. Yes,
I make the mad omelets. I got the sickest hair.
Let's don't go there. Just because you have a culinary degree doesn't mean
shit. I was making mad omelets.
Can we say a culinary degree?
I was making a certificate.
Sorry, I might have been stepping over the line a little.
And you fucking crossed the line right there, okay?
Yeah.
But
I'll defend myself.
But anyway, so getting back to it, you're in high school, classes, bleh, cereal box hat, fucking sick as shit on earth.
Right.
So
kind of lost my trail there.
Right. But so getting back to like what led you to going and actually taking classes, and not even just taking classes, because you ended up, I know I'm jumping ahead, but it's like you went to like Sac City and you were like, this ain't happening. And you made a bigger leap. So, but before that, I mean, like, what made you want to go to school for this? Like, why? Because after we graduated high school, then that's when we actually started doing band stuff. Like, we're playing shows and writing music and recording and stuff like that. So, but at what point? And then you quit, and it was like, okay, it just wasn't your thing, the whole band thing. But it seemed like you had found something else. So in that process of being in a band, being a band person, right?
Yeah, I think kind of trimming the fat for you. I was with a girl at that time that was pretty financially and career and personally focused on how to achieve those things.
And her dad's like super nice.
Yeah, he was a great guy. Not sarcastic at all. And, it definitely forced me into thinking into like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do again? And I looked into firefighting because why did I do that?
I have no idea.
That's a good question at this point. I think it was really just one of those spur of the moments. I want to learn something that I've never gone through, or like there's been times in my life where I'm like, why the fuck did I do that? Like, why'd we skydive? I don't know. Like, but was that a notable time in my life? Yeah. I completed Tough Mudder. That was super fucking challenging.
Well, you've always seemed to kind of like it always seemed like you needed to do something. Like when you started playing tennis, like what the fuck? David playing tennis? What is happening here? But it seemed like you always had a need to do something or learn something and kind of see it through. You always had these little fucking these little things that were just signs of that. Like, oh, skating. Okay, I'm going to get into skating and do all this shit. And then making skate videos. Like everything kind of like built up to these other things that in the end didn't really have anything to do with the original starting point.
And sometimes that actually saddens me to think.
You should be sad.
I know.
You gave
up
on everything.
When you get to see the color of life,
black.
Yeah, exactly. Like you sometimes looking. If you can't get what you want, then you start having a more muted gray palette on those things. And it's not that I couldn't have those things, it's I couldn't sustain those things. And I think that's really what it came down to. It's it's financial.
But you found something else like out of it though, and that's what's kind of cool.
Again, a means to the end, right? I want to create. If I can't sustain that creation, then what am I doing ultimately? we had a conversation earlier about, bandmates having, trouble, just finding a room together, touring together, paying for.
Yeah, I think you were the guy who even found like the rooms. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And you're like, yeah, we can rent. And I'm like, oh, what? Like you always did all the back end stuff. And that's what's funny. Like I guess we have a room now because of David. Oh, we have a website because of David.
I don't know if the room story is true. I know we definitely did that for prom once, and that was quite the shit show. But I mean, again, like maybe it's because I just want to be comforted, and I have a certain perspective on how those things should go. Yeah. And it doesn't always, meet eye to eye with what I presumed. But yeah, man, I love hearing others being like, "Oh, that's fucking cool." I mean, there's a certain sense of gratitude that I get off of it, but now it's not that I don't quote unquote like get off or get,
Oh. You get off, man. I know it.
Oh, I get off for sure, just in a different kind of way.
So real quick. So, and I don't want to stray from that, and I know what you mean, but I want to hear about like why you went to school. Like, what made you go to school?
I think you've been asking me this for years. It's Trigger Moments. If you've read that book,
I don't read books.
Cool.
Is it on an audiobook?
Sure. Yeah, of course it is. I think it's actually called Trigger, but it's a particular definition of like a particular moment in your time or your life that is that has like giving you enough reflection and also kind of foresight into what the world has become for you in that moment. And it happens in very rare times. And I got in a car accident when I think it was on 4th of July actually. And in Sacramento, you're kind of reliant on your car in a lot of ways. And, when I went to the firefighting academy, it was a major fucking challenge that is to go to Woodside or Woodland, that is, California. And I would actually have to hitch a ride with 2 other people that went to the fire academy that would have to come pick me up like 30 minutes out of their way just to take me to the academy. So like it was the one time where like I had others doing something directly to help me. And I started having this sense of like, I want to help others. And the crash led to just a sense of, I'm kind of hopeless. I can't drive to work. I can't drive to this firefighting academy. I have my family in the community, nearest me, which is definitely very impactful. And as oddly enough, I think I was living with you
probably
at that time. So my parents had moved across the street, got a new house, and I was like, "Hey, Martin, what's up, dude? Can I like live with you for a little bit?"
And live with me, you did.
Yes, it kind of went undisclosed to like what that meant exactly, but it was like a transitioning plan to being an adult. And very soon, I think I was 16 and I kind of knew immediately, like the second that I had to go, I was going to do it. I didn't know where, I didn't know why exactly, but I knew like I had to. And I think, not to go down a different alley, but like my upbringing wasn't so enlightening in that way of like the possibilities and chances and creative breath that you had. And I felt, and I look at old childhood videos, I was just a very extroverted, creative, reckless, weirdo individual. And at an early age, before any influence, like it has to come from genetics. So like my dad was a goofy person, obviously, but that carried forward. So I forgot where I was going with this whole fucking point, but like going to school was a moment for me. The moment ban collided with this moment, and I did a Google search for how can I make money as a designer? Like very simple, rudimental shit like that, right? And it actually led to nothing. Like it really didn't. And at that moment, at least. And there was people I was interacting with to create websites, to do like schemy things where you create blogs with products on there from Amazon and have, referral URL links that would drive back to your site and aka make money on ads. And also when people bought the shitty products, you make a, percentage off
right.
that. And it was just like little tactical ways, like, oh, $200 this week, oh, $300 that week. Like,
right.
that shit starts adding up quickly, and you realize, oh, I'm doing really like. Granted, I'm smoking weed like crazy the whole time, and
As you should be.
yeah, right. And you start realizing, oh, like what is to be said. And also, I had a reality moment when I looked at a jobs salary kind of encyclopedia books that they used to have in the library, like in our
What's a library?
I know of our high school, and it literally revealed to me that at top dollar as a chief engineer of being a part of a firefighting company in like a more urban area like San Francisco kind of area, the top pay is like 65,000, and that that seems like a lot, but
Still does.
yeah, it still does, right? The thing I learned, because I started working when I was like 13, 14, like as a dishwasher, so like I've had my grime in all different avenues, but the value of time and money, and especially when it came down to taxes and realizing, oh fuck, that's like not just a thing that's said, that's actually like a real scenario that we have to face. And
Right. It seems like you kind of like saw a little bit of a bigger picture and a little bit further ahead than most of us, and especially me, because I'm figuring things out now. I let the wife do the taxes because that shit's I don't understand it. So it seemed like you always had this kind of like you were always looking ahead. It was always, for some reason, you were a step ahead of things, and that's why, like, for someone on my end, was always confusing because I'm like right in the moment, and I'm like, why are you quitting the band? We're doing things, It just seemed like you were like, I need to pursue something else. It needs to be a little more substantial. It always seemed like that. There was always some weird reason. Like, I don't even know if we could. I don't know if I can explain it or if you could really explain it. But you just seemed like ahead of it, and like maybe because you were saying like you just were looking at the financial side of things and recognizing stuff and noticing things. But
yeah, I think humans are really good at pattern recognition, or at least supposedly I heard that in a book or
I can't
a podcast.
stand humans.
Yeah, they're awful.
So
but so the odd thing. Let me get to the actual moment when I was like, I'm going to college.
Mm-hmm.
I was in I sent a Craigslist, like, hey, like I create websites and someone's looking for like a business of 5 pages with like a contact form. And it's a very kind of rudimental early days website. I mean, that's even today, but you have Squarespace and all those things that help you get off the door, like, whatever. But the odd thing is, I actually opened up an email that was just one of those auto responses from Craigslist, basically saying like this is a fake email and like blah 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 blah, and just like it was a waste of my time. And that's how a lot of Craigslist ads lead to. It's just like a big waste of time. To the right of this particular, this is a waste of time email, had an ad that says like, are you looking to pursue a graphic design career? Like very bluntly questioning that. And like it was such a moment that oddly enough, I tell like junior people joining my company, like that was the moment for me when like it all came together. And I realized, one, I'm going to look into this naively, and it was, led to many bad decisions afterwards, but it got in a good spot. It was a ad for the Art Institute of California, San Francisco. And at that time I had a perceived sense that I could go into graphic design. The idea of creating t-shirts, websites, flyers, stickers, banners, any kind of
graphic design thing.
Yeah, I could figure it out. I know how to measure a piece of paper. I know how to think about design at a certain level of concept to execution, where some people kind of get baffled in those stages where, you really can't step any of them to get to the end point. So I basically hit them up, and my girlfriend at the time, kind of led me to like do it, like go see it. And she was actually going up to school in the Bay Area, St. Mary's, which is a Catholic girls' school. Like she was very focused on study. She actually went there immediately after high school. I kind of hung out here for a year or so, like during all of this kind of stuff and working odd jobs here and there. And it had a lot of influence. I'm like, well, I could be next to her, and those sorts of things. So I started the application process, and that basically means go there, look around, do a
Well,
tour.
I remember I went with you.
Seriously, the first one?
Yeah, I remember I went. You were like, "Hey, you want to go with me?" Because you were talking about like you should do it too. And I was like,
Oh right,
nah, I'll go
oh,
though.
Shit, that's funny.
And so I remember driving out there with you.
Was it me, you, and Anna, or just me, and you?
Just you and me.
Oh no,
you
shit.
and I. You and I.
Yeah, sorry.
And
Punctually correct.
And I remember going out there and I was like, this is kind of fucking weird. I mean, I just the school thing just wasn't for me, and I saw things from like a point of the artists of like money and school, blah, do it for the art, blah. And I'm still kind of like that. But anyways, it just at that moment in time, going to school for something just wasn't something I wanted to even do at all. But I remember I went. I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll go with you. And we went, and I remember like doing. I just remember going to this building, and we went in, and they were talking. You were talking to some lady, and I don't remember like too many details, but I know that I went with you, and it was just kind of interesting because I remember thinking like, oh man, this is kind of weird. Like he's actually coming out here. Like we're actually coming out here, not like, and it's not like we went to some other, fucking country or something like that. But, we're away from home, and it's like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Like, okay, and then it's so fuzzy just because it was so long ago. But that was one of the memories I have is like going with you.
Yeah, it's funny that I just kind of have a blurry spot in my mind.
So much has happened since that moment.
Yeah.
But and then it just seemed like all of a sudden, oh yeah, Dave's in fucking the Bay Area going to school. Like for what? Graphic design. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think so my actual study was interactive media design, which was kind of the nuanced niche that really led me into where I am today. Which was, they noticed that I wasn't a graphic designer. It was super obvious. I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not a traditionalist designer. I'm not an illustrator. I'm not a motion design. Like there's a lot of things I am not.
Clearly.
In the design realm.
Right.
Because it gets very branched off into particulars.
Right. Well, that's what's interesting too, is because you went there for graphic design.
Yeah, exactly.
It all started with graphic design and the intention to do graphic design. But then you kind of, once you're immersed in that world, you can really kind of like, nah, that's not really probably what you're going to do. And that seems to be the case of like kind of what happened to you.
Yeah, it was, a recommendation on their part almost. And it was a new study, so they wanted to, persuade people to kind of join that avenue. But at the same time, I was, being sneaky off to the side as usual and trying to figure out, is it worth it? So I just finished 3 years of firefighter training, right? And basically the sum of that game was, one, I didn't even pass my fire academy. Yeah, it sounds funny, but
'cause it's funny.
Yeah, it's very funny. Hilarious. But a lot of time and effort, physical and mental, went into that. And,
oh, of course,
all props to real firefighters, because I really get how fucking challenging that career is. And for the output of what they deserve, is not nearly met to par. But neither that nor. I started looking at Craigslist as a odd resource to judge how much things got paid. So, I can call it when I can't do something. Some people can't. Some people don't even challenge themselves to figure out if they could figure that out.
Right.
There's all obviously types of people. I knew I liked design. I knew I liked music. I knew I liked computers to a relative degree to get design and collaboration, communication kind of done. But the one thing that always really influenced me into that particular avenue versus graphic design was seeing $150 an hour versus $13 or $14 an hour. That's the graphic design, like, general baseline pay rate. And a lot of that comes with, and I wasn't really picking and choosing at certain points either of my life. I would take anything I could get.
Just going with the flow.
For sure. Like an odd project, I got commissioned to do a Bob Marley festival reggae thing in San Diego. I've never interacted with the individual on, the what are they called, producers or director side or whatever. It was literally through email. This commission happened, and I got paid. It was probably like $300 to $500 on it. It was just an illustration that they could basically do whatever they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And oddly enough, my hazy pot influenced artwork got some like notion of like people would want that. It was also just something I didn't want to create at the same time. So anyways, doing graphic design was great and everything, but once I started doing bigger projects, like there was this Community Action Marin as a company in the North San Francisco area, and they commissioned me like X thousands of dollars to get their website done. And it was a kind of similar process where it's like, talk to a person, like, what do you want? Starting to create some artifact that we could relate on, either that's sketch or like sketch written form, or maybe it's a doc, or maybe it's whiteboarding, or maybe it's a verbal and you're just logging everything mentally and going to follow up with some kind of asset that showcases all of that. It showed me that I liked kind of breaking off bits and pieces to create a bigger solution, and then obviously getting paid more. So it was pretty evident that when I got my first web project, I'm like, damn, not only do I have to not deal with like picky people, which I should have mentioned, any kind of illustration goes through 1,000 revisions because the first one is never right.
Right. Rarely, I imagine it's ever like, nope, that's it.
Exactly. Whereas like with certain web text, you can just say, no, that's the way it is. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, you still owe me. And that it's a tricky situation to be in, but it's the upper hand. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I would rather play that.
So, yeah, it's interesting. And it's because I don't know all the fucking little jobs and shit that you did to kind of that you were a part of. But what I do know is like it was a fucking cool thing that was going on, and I was super happy for you because it was like, wow, he's out of here. He's doing something that's fucking different and cool for us that I don't think any of our friends were doing. So that was super cool. And I remember going out there and hanging out with you at times and partying and going to weird parties and shit and drum circles and,
yeah.
and all of that shit.
There's a lot of moments.
The pride parades and shit. And it was cool because it was just neat to see like, wow, David's fucking here in this world where shit's happening and people are doing things and there's just this different vibe. And it wasn't that like we were getting a taste of something, not necessarily, because we were always very just open-minded. We were always just an open-minded group, really. Yeah. And so, but it was cool to finally be a part of things and see things and be involved with things and to see you as well, especially because you were there. And it was just awesome, man. And I know that you had some rough times. I remember you told me, you were like, dude, I don't know if I can fucking do this. I was like, what are you talking about? And you were just like, dude. And you were almost done with school. Mm-hmm. Like, you didn't have that much longer to go. It could have been a year kind of a thing. I don't know. But I remember talking to you, and you're just like, I don't know if I can fucking do this. You're like, I'm just tired of this shit and this and that, and which is understandable. I mean, you're immersed in school, and there's the whole money thing and living situation and, cooking ramen while you're taking a bath and
yeah.
or whatever. And
in the bath.
In the bath water.
Might as well.
But I remember you telling me this, and I was just like, dude, if you fucking leave school right now, I'll kick your ass. Like, I'll fucking hit you. I'll hit you.
Yeah.
I will show you physical violence. Like, dude, don't be stupid. Finish this shit, dude. Finish it. And you fucking did. And this is just another example of me. Without me, you wouldn't be where you're at.
Yeah, of
okay,
course.
we're just gonna get that out of the way. I made you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was just cool. And then, all right, school, you fucking did the grind. You owe shit tons of money. That's the nature of the beast. I mean, that's just, I guess, the way it is. I don't know. But anyways, so then, after school, you kind of want to get a job because, especially for like what you just spent, 4 years? I don't even know how long you were in school.
Yeah, so 4.5, a little bit.
Yeah, so, and school isn't cheap.
Yeah, not at all.
So I'm sure you had some jobs before the one that you're currently in and really excelled in, it seems like. And whatnot. But I remember, I don't know, man, it was just always super cool. Like, whoa, fucking Dave is doing some shit. And it's like, it's not just little things like, whoa, he's moved up. He's moving up into these situations where it's like, I think he's successful. And growing. He's on the path to success. And I was like, wow, this is fucking cool. And that's what I noticed, that when you were in school and we talked and you were talking to me about like, dude, this is just like, it's starting to kind of beat down on you. And I'm sure there was other life situations and whatnot that add to that. But I saw it, and I saw it like as soon as you went, when I went with you to that orientation thing, there was a sense of like on the road to success. And I knew you long enough to where it was like, damn, every fucking thing Dave does, he goes for. Whether it works out or it doesn't, he's doing it. And I started to recognize that early on. And so,
yeah,
and then the career part started happening. After school and the career thing, I was like, whoa, it's like something's happening here. And then you started talking about like this LinkedIn thing. I'm like, wait, I've seen this before. It was like, it wasn't just like, oh, I worked for Bubble Town. Like, what's Bubble Town? Like, oh, it's a thing where they make bubble towns. They make towns out of bubbles. It was something that like, wait, I've seen this name. I've seen the logos and the this and the that, and I'm like, whoa, like he's.
Yeah, it's a weird like on the cusp of notoriety of the company at hand. Like LinkedIn isn't a Google or a Facebook, and people likely wouldn't log in at a daily rate. But if you're a user and a lover of LinkedIn, you really understand the value and get the whole network at large and how it's going to benefit you from a career point of view and as a any kind of career aspirations that you might have. It's really a forecasting of others and their journey. And that's to date has never been done before. So if you think about the what Jeff would say, economic opportunity for everyone at massive scale, that's our CEO. Yeah, that's our lingo. I believe in it 100%. It's a strong mission, and I think that's why I've been driven to stay there for so long. So it's not totally usual to hear of people staying at a company for, back in the day, it used to be like 4 years is out of this world. But even today's age, it's like every year, 2 years, there's a turnover. Mm-hmm. Some companies thrive off that, most die. My particular choices have always been teetering on the idea of sustainability.
Right. And you've always seemed to like move up.
Yeah, trying to at least.
But I mean, like, I'm just referencing from the very beginning to where you're at now. There's always been just this moving up, kind of like, okay, here's this one, next step, next level, and you've always kind of done that shit, and it's always been super fascinating, especially for someone like me. I'm like, well, I work as a forklift driver, but it's someone like you. I'm like, it's like, oh, fucking David's moving up, and so that kind of shit has always been pretty cool.
So I think it's odd. I can look at this in maybe two different ways: the process of elimination, or surround yourself by the people you want to be. And you could really look at it in either way. So negatively, you take people out of your lives.
Yeah.
You reject them almost.
You can leave now.
See ya. And you internalize that to a certain degree. Or surrounding yourselves by the people that you love and admire the most. And that comes with the challenge of being, what's the word? Like when you want to, like your sense of jealousy of that person, is a challenge for you because you start asking yourself why and why not. And it really doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, and it's easy to fall into that.
Yeah, totally.
I think most people at some point are just like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why does it? And then you kind of like, after a while, it's like, man, this is like pointless to think of it that way. And then you can kind of, and then once you can kind of like be happy for someone's success is a fucking cool feeling. And I'm definitely guilty of that. Like, for sure guilty of that. And after a while, it's like, man, that's fucking dumb. I should be happy for people. Yeah. I think you kind of taught me that. I think you really taught me, like, you didn't know it. You didn't sit me down like, hey, Martin, knock that shit off. But it was just like, God damn, he's doing all this cool shit. And I'm just like not doing anything.
Again, there's different ways of looking at the glass half full, half empty.
Yeah.
And I look at it, from both sides also, or from all degrees maybe, when I'm high. And I'm really going futuristic.
So it's like all the time.
Yeah, basically. But not to quote a book, but to quote a book.
Quote it.
Quoting Heavens on Earth, which I got like hooked into recently.
Right now we're doing the Marmar's Hello There podcast book quote moment.
Woo woo! Book quote in the moment is brought to you by
David Carmona.
So this quote is brought to you by me. So it has this interesting study. It's not even a quote.
Never mind.
Never mind. It goes through a simple like thought process to say, like, when people are like, my body aches, or excuse me, my head aches. Why is there like this weird disconnection? So going to like why you overthink things and like you're so hyperly aggressive on everything around you and not like actually just creating and building and doing yourself. There's this constant check with your brain that you're in alignment. But why? When you kind of should just be functioning as like a single cell organism and just kind of keep it like that. Because everything else, and also to the book, and where maybe there is a quote, there's this idea of the now. It's the current 3 seconds that you're living in. Everything before that is the past. Everything after that is the future. You can only reflect on those 3 seconds. And it kind of looked into deep study of they had these weird things where like they would have a spider walk into a room or some kind of weird animal.
That's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, like a snake. And it was basically the need.
A snake walked into the room.
Yeah, sorry. Slithered, slided, whatever that acronym would be.
Slidden.
But basically there's...
Say it with me though. Slidden.
Going to the fucking point. Basically they were judging fight or flight. For people stepping into the room, they would either have the sense of like, let's say, let's kill the spider, or let's run away from the spider.
Or let's get the fuck away.
Yeah, right. But in general, those 3 seconds could really have a deep sense of historical context because there's some. Maybe the spider is not lethal. Maybe the snake is not lethal, and they're just pets, right? Like, why are we afraid?
And remember, if you have spiders for pets, you're a fucking lunatic.
I remember growing up, John, sorry, didn't mention last names. He used to have a tarantula.
Gregory had a tarantula.
Yeah, Gregory had tarantulas. But
John Gregory.
I guess that's kind of the chapter I'm on right now, which is to like reflect on the now, and it's something you constantly check in with and try to refrain as much as possible to not be so caught up in the before and after, because in a lot of ways that doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And that gets me hypertensive, if that's the correct terminology. Basically, like,
don't know.
people get anxiety attacks.
Oh,
let's say,
fuck yeah.
or stressed out. And I might have an opposite issue that some other people have, which is I can't stop myself sometimes.
Exactly. What are you talking? Well, wait. What do you mean in terms of what?
I guess in all kinds of ways, but in more of that constant pursuit for something.
Right, and that's exactly what I'm fucking talking about. Is you've always been that way, always, and that's kind of what led you up to career-wise. Everything that's happened in the past, and you're not even on that same path. You don't do. I mean, you have a guitar and dabble with music.
Yeah. But
maybe.
I would definitely not.
But it all started somewhere into where you're at now. Even the avenues that didn't fucking work, there were all these avenues, and it kind of led you to where you're at now, which is fucking cool. And I imagine you've been able to be a part of some cool projects. One that I remember, I don't even know if it was like a full on project, but you and I are big fans of the band Dredge. And I remember one day you were like, guess who I fucking saw at my business? And I, well, what? Who? I don't know. A guy? A girl?
Right.
Someone? I don't know. And you were telling me that the fucking...
It was just Gavin.
No big deal. And yeah, you told me that the fucking... The vocalist for Dredge was there. I'm like, that is fucking crazy. I don't know, like, the relevance of this story to anything, but it just seems like...
It was actually a humbling moment to realize that the paths of, the admired might be the same path that you might be on, and to be humbled by that, but not taken abode by that. For example, can we go back to Will or Matt? Name dropping. When I was hanging out with
Will and Matt from Dance Gavin Dance?
Yes, from Dance Gavin Dance.
Plugged.
They were hanging out with me post-show, like just chit-chatting.
And to be clear, they were hanging out with you. You weren't hanging out with them.
Well, oddly enough, this particular moment, Will was hanging out with me to avoid the constant, people, asking him for, photos and fucking signature.
Yeah, I know what that's like.
It became actually annoying to hang out with Will in that moment because I was like,
you're like, I'm here too.
No. It's actually nice. I mean, I'm sure he really enjoys that, and I probably would too. But it was just interesting to kind of see how that's led them in a certain direction. And to see Gavin that day, it led him in a certain direction.
Not Dance Gavin Dance, but Gavin.
Yeah, Gavin
the
from
vocalist from
Dredge. He actually works at a company very close by called Barracuda Networks. They do, I don't even know. But yeah, in just a weird coincidence, he had a business meeting there. We bumped into each other. Not like he fucking noticed me, but it was more of like...
He didn't recognize you?
Yeah, So I saw the look of desperation on his eyes, and he needed to badge in so that he could get our free lunch.
And Big Bad Dave was like, and Big Bad Dave was like, oh, hey.
I got you.
Hey, you need to badge in?
Hey.
Oh, you can't badge in? Oh, okay. Here, hold up.
Beep, beep.
Beep, boop.
And I made it happen. But yeah, he was there with, I guess, a couple others, business partners grabbing lunch. So, yeah, that story has no relevance to anything.
I just thought it was fucking cool. I was like, oh, wow. The dude from Dredge. That's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's there's actually, oddly enough, quite a bit of musicians in the San Jose area. So I live in Mountain View, which is just north of it. But it has that grimy Sacramento scene that we used to have. A little bit more Mexican influence, a little bit harder to get to actual venues. Just because of the parking situation and logistics.
And just to let everyone know, David can say Mexican because he's half Mexican.
Technically, I'm
yeah, wait, I need to.
Yeah,
look at my dog.
He has a big wiener. Well,
right.
Whoop whoop.
But yeah, man. So just kind of getting back, I find kind of your journey to where you're at now. I've always found it super interesting. I've never quite understood what you do, but it was clear to me that it was like you're doing fucking something cool and you're successful with it with your career, and I love seeing it, and I love seeing people who have taken some paths and had some failures and some successes and shit like that and end up in a cool spot. And even if you didn't, I just still think that what you had done and what you're continuing to do is cool, and it just seems like you're a part of something that's cool and interesting, and even though I don't understand it, I can see enough that it's something cool, and I've always thought that about this.
Yeah, I mean, I could easily say the same thing about music creation and just like
I'm crazy cool.
The evolved process of like actually composing.
Yeah, I'm crazy cool.
You are so cool. But yeah, thanks, man. It's also something I'm still challenged by today.
It has to be. I mean, to turn out things and continue.
Yeah, and you start asking, why are you continuing? You know, and those things plague you as they drive you too. And they can be little decisions sometimes that drive you. Or they can be big and monumental and things that are just like, you know, situational things like having a kid or getting married or, you know, getting in a car crash. Those things like alter the way that you look at your career in a lot of ways. And, you know, fortunately it wouldn't happen to everyone, so they don't have to make those choices all the time. But if you live in more busy residences, where you see that happening all the time, there's like this natural, it's called like the coffee bar effect. Like if you go there, supposedly you're going to be more functional and effective, and it like
to work on your movie script and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because that's what we all do. So people go there with this elude sense that they're going to create and like ahas are going to come out, but it's just like distractive noise. But there is something to be said about that energy and that like magnetism that people have, right? About finding other people. And I had a psychology class where we were assigned to examine the public for an hour. So
yikes.
I know, right? It seems incredibly boring and mindless, and like you at the surface don't appreciate it. Afterwards, you start noticing slight signals of body gestures, of human-to-human interaction, not verbal, not physical, as so, like little nuances. And that actually taught me a lot that, like, you know, again, into the now thing, but we had to actually take notes of everything we saw, and then go, you know, above and beyond with heard, you know, experience through all your senses, like smell, taste, like what do you feel in this room? It's just a really interesting thing to do sometimes. Like, again, this morning, I was, you know, waking up next to a farm. I have a van with a little bed in it.
Now hold on now.
Yeah, I guess we're
gonna sidetrack here because I want to talk about this. Like, you do a lot of interesting shit, and that's another thing about you that I just fucking love, is that it's like, I had this cool like techie job thing, and I still could not tell someone what you do after this conversation. But
was that the goal?
I don't know, but it's like you just do so. And again, it's just what I said about like the things that you do. You're like, oh, you know what? The lady and I, we like to go on trips and do shit and this and that. And then your car gets kind of smashed on, and so you decide to buy a van.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
and deck it out and make it fucking tight, and then now you can go on these road trips and just sleep in your van.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very luxurious as you make it sound, but it's a fundamental need. Going back to practicality, it's awesome to fucking go somewhere and really have no strings attached.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I just think it's like cool. Like when you showed up in the van, I was just like, oh my god, he's a soccer mom.
Yeah.
And then I get in and I'm like, god damn, like this is not just a van. There's a fucking bed. You got some military grade water thingy, and
yeah, it's nice having
a poop bucket thing, and
it's not really a poop bucket, but
and all this shit. You have a little fucking iPad-y thing at the top.
iPad.
Oh yeah, you got
A
this.
shower, I have a fridge, I have a generator.
It's just fucking crazy.
I have lighting now.
And this is the shit that I love about
battery.
you. This is the shit I love about you. Because
if I
you
could
do
throw
these,
a lot of money
Dave,
into it,
hang
I
on,
totally
Dave. Hang
would.
on, Dave. Hang on, Dave. And then you just do this shit and you make it fucking happen. And it's inspiring. It really is. It's like, you know, like, oh fuck, he's doing some shit. Whether it's big or small, you're doing it. And I'm like, God damn it, I'm happy for you. But it's inspiring, and that's something, and that's how you've actually always been to me. Is this kind of like, damn, Dave's doing this shit. You know, it's not like you came from like this rich situation, or you know, like anyone who knows you, as long as I have, like
where's this going?
Like, dude, you were a fucking little weasel,
Yeah, okay.
like thieving, lying, green-haired, too big of clothes wearing kind of turd bag, which we all were. But to see like it didn't matter, like like where you ended up, and then the shit that you continue to do, it's just like, dude, this is fucking cool, man. Like, you've really paved your own way and created your situation, which is really good. And it's just like, oh man, this fucking guy does all sorts of weird shit.
Well, I'm kind of like you.
No, you're not.
In certain ways.
You wish.
I have a lot of ideas. Most of them are not practical, or even within scope of like doable. It's like I would love. So this is like a far-fetched dream and something I told Natalia like time and time again. But like, if I could go to international, it's
House of Pancakes.
House of Pancakes. How am I forgetting it all of a sudden?
You're nervous.
I know. Basically, if I could tour a bunch of national parks, that would be like the golden dream. Obviously,
You have the heart of an old man.
kinda. I mean, a lot of us kind of see the edge of what we can find, and either you fucking love it and you just keep pursuing that edge, of like where you can go in your career and become like. So I'm going all over the place, but in
your van?
Yes, in my van. But the people I work with are very wealthy. Like, there's a lot of salespeople, a lot of business people, a lot of high-level engineers. Like, makes my well-being look like, again, nothing. And it's kind of humbling, and it's kind of like demoralizing or whatever. Like,
That might not be a word.
yeah, it's probably not.
But I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, it basically wears on you, and because you start checking yourself against those people,
Right.
and that's the wearing part. And then obviously when you give up, let's say in terms of not wanting to be that person anymore, I've always looked at it like, I want to be that person. I admire that person. Like, that's so cool. Like, and I kind of am drawn off that. But at a certain point, it like you stop finding those in the area that you live. And I've gotten a little bit more settled, so it's harder to find those outlets and inspiration that really resonate with me at this point.
Yeah, but you're always looking, and that's cool. And then you kind of find something and you just go for it.
I guess I needed the van to find it.
You hear that, people? Get yourself a van.
Get a van.
Get a fucking van.
It's actually very
It's
cheap.
fucking cool though,
Yeah.
dude. I don't know, man. It's just fucking cool.
I got the economy class 2011 edition.
Sick. Get yourself a fucking fly ass job, people.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a legit need for a real car, but
It's hard parking this van everywhere.
yeah, exactly. Like, if my lady drove, I would probably get that other.
We're gonna talk about that next time. Save it for the podcast.
That's it for the podcast.
All right. Well,
Cool.
David.
Yes.
Car fucking Mono.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. You are my best friend. You have been for many years.
That's
it took
honor.
being a bully to you and
Yep. Years on end of getting abuse.
and this and that, man. I've always found your kind of the story of
My wisdom.
your wisdom.
My wisdom.
I've always found the story of basically where you started and where you're at now and I'm sure we left out a lot of shit, a lot of like the hard times and stuff like that, and whatever. But there's so many ups and downs and so many things that have happened, and successes and failures, and just doors opening up from every situation. I've always thought it was fucking cool, and it was always interesting to me. It's like, damn, look where he's at. Look where he's at. It's fucking awesome, and it's amazing. It's inspiring to see. It's refreshing when you get to see it so close. When someone has some sort of success within your group, and it's a great feeling. It's awesome to see. And then to know that you're still the same butthole. Yep. that you've always been is another thing that is great, because success in any fucking like world can change people, and you've had success, and yet you're still the same fucking guy. You say weird shit, you lie.
I don't lie as much, nearly.
You don't steal as much, so that's good.
No, I've tapered down some of those bad habits.
Man, I've always been super fucking proud of you as a friend, and I've always seen you more than just a friend. You're my brother, and it's just awesome to see like the success that you've had, and to build a career, and moving up, and all the moving ups that you've done throughout it all. So yeah, man,
it's cool. I'm looking forward to creating more, whether that's with you on this or on other ventures in the future. I can always be found on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so where can the people follow you at?
Yeah,
to kind of
you got to plug me a little bit here.
You got an Insta?
Got to pay for my time.
He's got an Insta. He's got a Facebook. He's got a LinkedIn. Hopefully.
So you can find me on LinkedIn always, David Carmona. You can do a search, and it's pretty easy to find me. Don't get confused by the boxer nor the famous Spanish musician. They are both very talented, but
they're copying him. I said it here and now.
They took my name. But yeah, you can find me there. Instagram, I don't really use that very much. David-Carmona.com. Yeah, man, I'm going to be doing a lot of mobile projects this next coming up year. I'm learning a lot about native design. And that's actually really fucking cool because everyone has a cell phone. And that's really the new world and venture that a lot of us are stepping into and have been for a long time. And the second to that last frontier is doing design at scale. So how can you take one design idea and pass that across hundreds of people quickly, efficiently? I'm excited, man. It actually keeps me waking up every morning.
Yeah, you're in a world where there's shit happening, and there's a lot of growth and other like projects to get involved with, and it's fucking cool.
Yeah, maybe I can report back on that later. There's a lot of scale and a lot to do.
Like lizard scales?
Like lizard scales.
Dun-dun-dun. Cha-cha! All right, everyone. Well, I don't know what number podcast this will be, but I know I said number 1, but fucking who knows? Anyhow, David Carmona, my guest here on Marmar's Hello There podcast. Running, it's still a running title. We'll see. If I get approved and no one's fucking taking that shit, then that's what it is.
TBD.
So thank you for listening. This is Marmar's Hello There podcast and outro music. Peace. Say bye, Dave.
Boy.